If everyone would please give a warm Georgia Tech welcome to Bree.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's so nice to be here. I hear that I narrowly missed a devastating 2-inch snowstorm, so whew, good thing I missed that. In from San Francisco, so any amount of snow or ice would have indeed caused me great trouble. But it's a treat to be here today. I am at Indiegogo. I've been there for a little over a year, and I'll share with you one of the campaigns that I first saw when I joined Indiegogo, which was by Georgia Tech alums, and it's really a very inspiring campaign and made me realize some of the amazing thought and work that was going on here. So I've been looking forward to the chance to come to campus ever since then, over a year ago, so it's really a pleasure to be here today. Thanks for having me. Indiegogo was founded back in 2008 when our founders came together looking to raise funds from their crowd for very different reasons. Danae and Eric were at the Haas School of Business at Berkeley, and their colleague Slava had been at Wharton at Penn, and together they wanted to change the world by democratizing access to capital. So they founded Indiegogo on the belief that anyone, anywhere in the world, deserves the chance to achieve their dreams. And to this day, we remain extremely dedicated to being the world's most open crowdfunding platform. That means that we have campaigns spanning topic areas from health innovation to an individual raising funds to go on a fellowship trip to a startup for-profit, a startup nonprofit, you name it. We now have millions of people who come to the site every week, millions of dollars that flow through the site every week, and campaign owners and contributors from over 190 countries and territories. So we've grown a lot in the past few years. These are just a few of our stats. What I'd highlight about Indiegogo is that we are very, very dedicated to customer service. So we like to think of ourselves as the Zappos of crowdfunding. And we have a 24/7 support team who will help you at any time. We have area experts in lots of different topic areas from film to hardware, et cetera. And we're also very international. So you can see here a list that we have our site available in English, French, Spanish, and German, and multiple currencies that we enable on the site. So it's a thrill to work there. We actually just had our Series B round announced last week where we raised $40 million from Kleiner Perkins and IVP. So we're in the very fun stage where I expect we're actually about to hit another huge growth moment in the stage of the company. So it's a really fun time for me to be here with you. We're particularly focused, and I'm especially focused, on entrepreneurship and how crowdfunding enables entrepreneurship in a new way. These are some of our partners in entrepreneurship, and especially social entrepreneurship. I don't think we have an official partner page with Georgia Tech right now, but we're happy to do that, and we certainly have a lot of students who have run campaigns from this community. So just to orient you quickly to what a campaign looks like, before we delve in too deeply on that, how many of you have ever funded a campaign, a crowdfunding campaign? Quite a few. Okay, has anyone funded a campaign on Indiegogo? How about anyone has run a campaign? What? This guy right here, I ran a campaign with him earlier this year. Fantastic campaigner, and you should definitely catch him afterwards for tips and tricks. But anyway, it's really an amazing experience to run a campaign, and it can be life-changing personally and professionally. Just to orient you to what a campaign looks like, you have several pieces. This is your key pitch, where you put a photograph or a video. Here you have your goal. This campaign was looking to raise $75,000. The amount they've actually raised was over $500,000. There's no time left, and they ran a fixed funding campaign, meaning that they did not want to receive any of the funds unless they hit their goal. But this is actually not the norm on Indiegogo. More of our campaign owners choose to receive their funds in our flexible funding model, where they'll get the funds regardless of whether or not they hit their goal. Beneath that, you see the perks, which is a term referring to the tokens of thanks that the campaign owner is giving to contributors in exchange for their contribution. This is an example of a partner page where you're seeing a description of the partner. This one happens to be Startup America, showing up at the top, a little description of what they're up to, and then campaigns beneath it. This was actually a campaign by Duke students, this one by UVA alum. So lots of students doing amazing startups that we see on Indiegogo all the time. So when you think about crowdfunding, it's really common to think about the funding side. And yes, there is a ton of value in the funds you can raise via crowdfunding. But often our campaign owners come to us after a campaign and share that the even more valuable part of the campaign experience was what they learned from the campaign. And we find that the information you can gather as an entrepreneur is particularly valuable. It's really an amazing way to gauge your market and test your market. You've probably heard of the term the lean startup. I like to think of crowdfunding as the lean funding model. It's a way for you to get funding in an informative way where you're not only getting dollars, but you're also seeing who's caring about my campaign. Why are they caring about it? How much are they willing to contribute to it? What are they claiming for perks? Which marketing messages are getting through? And it allows you to actually change the course of your business development by seeing what you learn. I want to walk you through a few examples of the value of crowdfunding. This is an example of a campaign that just launched last week by students at the Haas School of Business at Berkeley. They're looking to create the Uber of healthcare, where you're able to get healthcare service via your phone. Don't even have to go wait in the waiting room. You see their disgruntled friend looking at his watch in the waiting room because he's not using PlushCare. And in this scenario, they're looking for the funds to actually launch the company. So they've raised now more than what's even listed there, and they're well on their way. Their services can only be offered in California right now, but one of the things they're looking for in this campaign is where else in the world they're getting contributions from so that they can know where is their big demand, what state should they expand into next. So contribute if you want them to take Georgia as the next state on their list. These campaigns are showcasing ones that have gone on from crowdfunding to really use that proof of demand to help catapult them to their next level of work. The upper campaign is the Minuum. It's a campaign by students at the University of Toronto. It collapsed the keyboard from 3 lines down into 1 so that it fit much more easily onto a tablet and you had more space for your images. They launched with a goal of $10,000, thinking that that was ambitious enough, but they actually had, as you can see from their perk, over 8,000 people claim early access to the software, to be the first people to download this new software. And what happened was so many people claimed it and offered their feedback on it that then when they went live with their second version of the software, it was much better than the first. And now they've been approached by hardware phone companies to integrate their software into phones that are sold at retail outlets. So they actually skipped the venture round and went straight to retail. They've now hired a team and are working professionally out of Toronto. The bottom one is for the TV show Shark Tank. Has anyone seen Shark Tank? Yeah, so it's a fun show. Investors looking in on different potential investments, deciding if they want to go in on a round. And we had a campaign called the Breathometer that attaches to your phone. You breathe into it. It tells you whether or not you're safe to drive based on your blood alcohol content. And that campaign got a ton of momentum on Indiegogo, raised way more than its goal, ending up at over $130,000. And that set of entrepreneurs was the first time on Shark Tank that all 5 sharks at one time wanted to come in on a single deal. So all 5 of the sharks split the deal across themselves. It was really exciting for that campaign, and a large part of that reason was because they'd seen the incredible demand on Indiegogo ahead of the round. These campaigns help them to expand their work and grow their presence. The top campaign is a gal named, what is her name? Hannah Hart, who has a show called Hello Hardo. And it's a YouTube show called My Drunk Kitchen, where she literally drinks and cooks and has an amazing time. And she wanted to take this show on the road. She wanted to take her YouTube show on a tour, but she didn't know where to go. So what she did was launch a campaign, and every time you contributed to it, she would count your location as a vote for your geography, and she actually mapped out her tour route based on where people had contributed from. The gal on the bottom with the crazy Band-Aid face has a nonprofit in Kenya that was really being successful in giving kids jobs in one town of Africa, in Kenya, and she wanted to expand to another town. But she needed $25,000 to do it, and she didn't really have discrete perks that she could offer. She didn't have a product, she didn't have a TV show, so she was very clever, and she decided to go with this theme of being beyond Band-Aids. Her solution was a beyond Band-Aid solution to poverty. So she launched her campaign at the start and put 25 Band-Aids on her face, and every time she raised $1,000 during her campaign, she would peel one off. So the rest of the time, she was walking around with these Band-Aids on her face, getting social media attention, getting lots of momentum for her campaign, and she did ultimately raise $27,000 for her campaign. And she's already launched her second location in Kenya, even since June, so she's really done a good job. This is an example of using crowdfunding to raise awareness. So this campaign was out of UNC, I believe. And they were having these, at UNC. So there were these two speakers who hadn't been invited to speak at UNC, and some of the students had perceived that as being discriminatory against the topics the speakers would have focused on. So they raised a campaign to get the funds they needed to bring those speakers to campus. It was quite successful. We see using crowdfunding as an advocacy tool very, very powerful, and that's especially powerful when the message you're trying to send is perhaps equally or even more valuable than the dollars. Crowdfunding is also really valuable to empower your participants. So this is an example of our partner page with Kiva, which empowers its fellows to go help with their microfinance work around the world. And Kiva has their fellows volunteer their time. They don't pay them. So their fellows often run campaigns on Indiegogo to cover the cost of their travel, their lodging, their stay in countries around the world helping Kiva. This is a model I see by college students a lot. We actually see a lot of students raising funds to cover portions of their tuition. Sometimes we see students raising them to cover internships or experiences abroad, mission trips, things along these lines. So these two campaigns are from schools right around here. This is a campaign out of Emory, where Samantha, you can read the descriptions, she's quite a good writer, but she needed surgery and she needed to raise money to do it. So her campaign was an amazing example of raising awareness for the fact that transgender surgery should be more accessible, and also raising the funds she needed to have the surgery, and it was ultimately a very successful campaign. Samantha's a student at Emory. This campaign is the Robot Dragonfly campaign, which was by Georgia Tech alums that I referred to earlier. These dragonflies are literally robots that fly around, and if that weren't cool enough, they also have video cameras on them so you can use them to go spy on your neighbors. And this campaign was run a year ago before we were in our helicopter drone phase. So you guys are clearly ahead of the curve here. Fantastic campaign. As you can see, it raised over $1 million. Okay, so now what I want to do is take us on the journey of thinking through the creation of a campaign. And this is a real campaign. I'm working with them right now. They have, I believe, 5 days left, so they're getting close to the end. But I told them I was going to share their campaign with you, and they were very excited and said, please tell me if they have any ideas for how we can run our campaign even better or creative initiatives. So this is real time. Please share your thoughts, and I'll relay them back to the folks at Mars One. So what is Mars One? Mars One aims to be the first human settlement on Mars. Okay, that is crazy, the first human settlement on Mars. And they're actually sending the first ship there in 2018. They're in partnership with Lockheed Martin, and they aim to have the first humans live there in 2025. Over 200,000 people have applied to be the first 4 people who go to Mars in this first mission. Mind you, when you go to Mars, you can never come back. 200,000 people. They want to run a campaign, and they've decided to run a campaign because they want to raise awareness and support for this vision, and they also want to raise funds to cover a portion of this 2018 trip. So let's talk about what makes a good campaign. First is your pitch. And when you think through your pitch, one of the first things to do is make sure that you abide by the green bar effect. So when you look at these pictures, who wants to fund this one? No one. It's really lame looking. Who wants to fund this one? More people. Okay, good job. Because that campaign looks like it has more chance of success. It has a higher percent of its green bar raised. This is psychological in part because they've both raised $20,000, but the one on the right looks like it's going to be more successful. So you can use this wisely when you run a campaign and make sure you think through your goal, whatever it is you're trying to accomplish, think about how much it's going to cost, and then make sure that you can raise this first 30% or so from your closest community in the first 24 to 48 hours after going live. Because it's only after you get the people who know you really well to support you that the crowd will come in. We say if your mom won't give you $5, why would a stranger? So this is really important. And with Mars One, as you can imagine, running a mission to Mars is a multi-billion-dollar campaign. We at Indiegogo have hosted the world's largest crowdfunding campaign, which has raised $12.6 million. It's quite large. We're very excited about that, but it's certainly no billions of dollars. So when we were talking to Mars One, one of our first questions for them was, how much do you want to raise from your first campaign, and what will that help you to cover? So they decided to set their campaign goal at $400,000 and have that cover the first set of blueprints and model designs by Lockheed Martin for their craft for 2018. Second most important thing when you're thinking through your pitch is to have a compelling story that's personal. So when you share your idea with the world, you want to make sure that you share your person behind it. Who are you? Why are you doing this idea? Why are you putting your time and effort behind it when you could be doing so many other things? People connect with people. It's not an advertisement. Don't have a beautifully made graphic image only. That's a huge mistake I see. And you need to actually put yourself in the video and share who you are. You're looking to connect with an audience over the internet. You need to show who you are as a person. It's very important. Don't make your video longer than 3 minutes max, preferably closer to 2. This is Bas Lansdorp. He's the founder of Mars One. He's in the Netherlands. He just had a baby, and he shares his personal story in the Mars One video. And it's because we start to understand him and why he's so excited and that he's been wanting to take this next big leap for mankind for many years that makes us excited about the Mars One campaign. So in addition to your pitch, the second most important thing to have for your campaign is an audience that cares, and you can appeal to them via your perks. The perks are the tokens of thanks you give to your contributors. And people contribute generally for one of these 3 reasons. They care about the purpose of what you're doing, or they have passion and want to participate in what you're doing, or they like your perk or token of thanks. Excuse me. So make sure that you think through all of those reasons when you're putting together your perks and have a variety of perk levels for each of those. You can be really creative, but we do find that campaigns with perks raise a lot more funds and are generally more successful. You have to be thoughtful, though, and make sure you keep fulfillment in mind. So what you tell people you will offer them, you actually have to offer them. So don't tell people that you'll be able to do impossible things, and make sure that you keep how much time and money it will cost to fulfill those perks in mind when you offer them. You can set maxes, like certain number available, and that can be very effective. These are some of my favorite perks that I've pulled from across the site. I particularly like this one from the Mini-Room campaign that we talked about, that downloadable software that collapsed your keyboard. You got to be the first to try it, so it was an early download. This one was for an app camp for girls where they learned how to code, and you actually got wallpaper for the back of your phone that the girls coded at the camp. These ones are both in person. It's opportunities to meet these folks in person. You get to see a tour of the telescope they were fixing, and here you get to join the founders and entrepreneurs at a conference about medical innovation. Also, you see at the top, the scarf from Nepal. People seem to like to travel vicariously through campaigns. It's nice to have a way for people to connect. And even offline, simple thank yous, those can go really far. For Mars One, they have had pretty good luck with their perks, actually. They have everything from, just for $10, you get to be up to date on what's going on with Mars One, be the earliest informed, get to hear what's the latest. For $25, they made this great idea of having a Mars orbit selfie. So literally, when they have the orbiter going around Mars, they'll take your digital photo and take a photo of the photo with Mars behind it. Pretty sweet. Next Giant Leap t-shirt. And then this one I really like too. So it's like you get to send your Twitter message to Mars. You get to have 140 characters that will be printed on the parachute that lands on Mars. They're like, what does this mean exactly? Well, your message will land on Mars and will remain there, possibly forever. So it's just a sort of a fun idea. Like you're taking this idea of the Twitterverse and putting it on a parachute and landing it on Mars. They've actually had, I wonder if I made a picture of it. No, so they've actually had a lot of momentum with their coins. So these are all of their perks. It's nice to make infographics. People love infographics. So you see they have different kinds of coins. They've had a lot of success with these Mars coins that have no real value on Mars, but on Earth are fun for people to have. So they've had multiple versions of these coins that they're offering on their campaign, and they've come out with different limited editions. So in addition to your pitch and your perks, the third important thing that every great campaign must have is a strong promotion strategy. And with respect to your promotion, the main thing to think about is plan ahead. It's to be planful. It's to think through what audiences will care and how you will reach them. And you can really start with this even now. So if any of you are thinking you might one day run a campaign, you can start thinking about who are the key influencers in the industries that you care about. So for Mars One, it's great if they have key influencers like former astronauts, like people who work at Lockheed Martin, et cetera, who can support them and be their key advocates. So start thinking through who are those people who you want to know you, and start getting to know them in the social media space. Don't try to use every social media platform because you'll burn out and have a bad, small social media presence on many platforms, but rather choose a couple. For me, I usually use Twitter and Facebook, and go deep with those and develop your networks. If you're doing a startup that's more professional related, you might choose LinkedIn. If you're doing one that's more visual, you might choose Pinterest or something. There's probably a new one that I don't even know of that you guys know of already. So choose what's right for you and start developing that network. Also start to think through how you'll make this great first impression, because you can only do it once and you want it to be strong. So when you launch your campaign, you want to raise that early 30% right away. So we often find people have a soft launch. Well, they'll share their campaign with their closest community only and not with the greater world in order to get that early momentum. So you can do that by having an in-person event. Maybe you have a happy hour where you invite your friends to come to a bar, you show them your campaign video, and ask them to contribute right there. You can prime them by sending emails that you're about to launch your campaign, but really think carefully about getting that early momentum. Then, once you have it, you can start to have your broader reach strategy, where you'll start to reach out to the media, which are more interested in following and covering campaigns once they have some proof of momentum from the crowd. It's also at that time that your Indiegogo go-go factor will go up. And your go-go factor is our measure of social engagement. It's how much you're updating and getting engaged with your campaign, and how much the world is getting engaged with your campaign and sharing it and linking to it and visiting it. So the more your go-go factor goes up, the more we'll share your campaign in our network of the millions of people who come to visit us. I think actually, Kevin, your campaign was in our newsletter one day and resulted in your largest contribution you'd had, right? Yeah, so it was very exciting. And that's not unusual. So stay active, treat your campaign like a blog, so keep updates to it, and keep iterating on it. So much like the Mars One people, I mentioned that they had this silver coin that was doing well, so they launched the bronze coin. They also, during the run of their campaign, released a book, which was a nice way to give them some momentum during the campaign. They also showcased their affiliation with Lockheed to give them some credibility. They had a launch party in DC in conjunction with Lockheed Martin. So they really have been very proactive. And this, I'm sure, is where they'd most appreciate your ideas. So at the conclusion of our talk, which is very soon, please give me ideas that you have for them on how they can get even more momentum on their campaign. But it's pulling those three pieces together, your pitch, your perks, and your promotion, that can help you to have a really successful campaign. This is the Mars One campaign as it looks, well, as it looked last night. So you see they've passed their 30%. They have over 4,000 funders. And they have 5 days left. But they'll get the money no matter what. So they're moving forward on the mission to Mars. But they'd like very much to hit the $400,000 amount. So when you're thinking through your own initiatives and why you might want to run a campaign, either to raise funds or to get information on your market, raise awareness for a cause, test out your idea, definitely look to resources first. So I highly recommend downloading our field guide. It's 20 pages full of tips on how to run a good campaign. If you Google Indiegogo field guide, it'll be the first thing that shows up. And there are a lot of other resources listed here too, like our blog. But even more important than any of these, I would say, is just be in touch, because every campaign is unique, and we can send you specific examples that relate to what you're doing and help you think through what you're doing and help you roll out your campaign in a strong way. So overall, I would just end by saying that I have enjoyed this time at Indiegogo so much, and especially from the perspective of being a social entrepreneur in my earliest days at UVA and expanding that at NYU and then working in social entrepreneurship. I think crowdfunding offers a truly amazing chance to move forward ideas that historically might not have gotten momentum from traditional financial investing means, but now we have the chance as a group, as a crowd, to move forward and test and learn and move forward in not just a stronger, but also more effective and efficient way than ever before. So, treat to be here, happy to chat with you and answer questions, and let's keep the conversation going.
Well, you don't announce this Gordon Birch thing.
Oh, sure. So a quick couple public service announcements. One, there is beer in our future, and that's at Gordon Birch after this. You're all welcome to join. It's not subsidized, just so you know. Okay, secondly, Indiegogo is actually having a really exciting initiative coming up in the beginning of March. So International Women's Week is March 3rd through 8th. And for that initiative, Indiegogo is going to be giving an extra $1 back for every $25 raised by campaigns that are empowering women. And that can be a broad definition of empowering women, from supporting women entrepreneurs to international women's development to education, women in tech, you name it. We're very open, and it's going to be a really exciting day as well as week. We're going to have promotional and exciting events throughout the course of the week, culminating in International Women's Day on March 8th. Indiegogo has always been very proud to be supporting women's empowerment, from our founder, Danae, to the fact that only something like 5% of funds in the venture capital space go to companies with women on their board, but closer to 45% of campaigns on Indiegogo have women on their campaign team. So we're really proud to be able to empower women and are excited to be part of this broader initiative.
Any questions?
Why don't you pass her the mic?
Okay, you touched on this kind of briefly about being a social entrepreneur at UVA. I know like one of the things that we struggle with as students is like trying to campaign on campus, like with raising funds. What do you think is like your biggest piece of advice for trying to motivate students and like our peers and stuff?
Sure. So when I was launching Kids Acting Out at UVA, I didn't even know about crowdfunding. I mean, it's not really a new concept. The base of the Statue of Liberty was crowdfunded in 1884 by 100,000 people giving 89 cents. But that didn't mean that I knew what it meant. So, and it's since then really become much more prevalent because of online networks. So I found ways to just be really scrappy, which helped. But actually, I would encourage you in today's day and age to think through the opportunity you have to work with people to help you with their time, so volunteers, their talent, their treasure, so their dollars, and also their network. So one thing that students have more than probably any other demographic is that network, because you're so connected and so involved in different networks that you can help to reach and share ideas better than pretty much anyone else. So crowdfunding is a great way to do that. And the nice thing about crowdfunding, especially on Indiegogo, is that every time you share the campaign, even if you're not giving money, you're endorsing it and giving your social media stamp of approval, which informs your go-go factor, which will help us promote it more. So you can do many things. I'd suggest having a campaign team where you get a bunch of people on campus. They might not be famous, they might not be your best friends, but they might be people who care for some reason. Maybe they were they did what you're focusing on in high school and they want to help you out in college doing it, or they see it as a career trajectory. So get a nice big group and then incent them to share the campaigns. You can even run what we call a referral contest, where you tell folks, whoever refers the most people to my campaign, and you can see all of this data on the back end, will get a special perk. I'll take you out to coffee. I'll do your homework for you. Maybe not that. Whatever it may be, but you can actually have these referral contests, which are very, very effective.
Awesome, thank you.
Or you have a question over here.
Oh, yeah, great. My name's Joey Richardson. I just have a question about, you're talking about how Indiegogo relies heavily on people's networks and spreading the word. So how do you see Indiegogo growing in the future regarding, maybe an app in the future, or just growing in that sense to be more accessible to people?
We are currently focused very much on the development of our mobile site as well as our international growth. So all of our growth to these many countries and territories has been highly organic, and now we're really doubling down to focus in certain areas. So our international growth is for sure a focus area. The mobile growth is also an area we've been focusing on, and there already have been a lot of good updates, and more are rolling out in the next few weeks. So that's going to be a big deal. The other thing we're thinking about is how we have a great user experience. So John Doerr, who is one of the venture partners and was the lead investor for us from Kleiner Perkins, said that one of the reasons he liked Indiegogo so much was because we're so user-focused. And that's something that we want to focus on even more and more. We have a new model. We have a lot of new things that will be rolling out with respect to our site and how easy and accessible it is in the near future. So be on the lookout.
Question over here.
As a social enterprise, how does Indiegogo make money?
So Indiegogo has always believed itself to be a double bottom line company, and I think it's one of the few companies where that is so 100% true. It's really very special. So when we raise funds, we are enabling more dollars to be funded in a no gatekeeper model, and we have a % of funds raised model. So we take 9% of funds if you don't hit your goal, and 4% if you do, because we like people to set goals they can reach. But we also have a 25% discount for nonprofit and university campaigns. So it's 6.75% if you don't hit your goal, and 3% if you do.
First of all, thank you so much for your time today. You mentioned one woman conducting a campaign where her rewards were that she plotted her route going around doing her show. And I'm involved with a startup right here in Atlanta, based across the street, Kanga. And we are starting in the Atlanta market, but one area we're very interested is in expansion. And the idea of letting the crowd tell us where to expand is intriguing. Is that something that you're seeing a lot on Indiegogo, that people are making those decisions based on people's willingness to contribute?
More and more, I'm seeing that. So I saw it with the Hello Hardo campaign. I'm seeing it with our Plush Care campaign, the healthcare Uber model, and I saw it with App Camp for Girls, which launched their first nonprofit camp in Portland, Oregon, but raised $50,000 so fast that they realized there clearly was demand for them to expand elsewhere. So every time you contributed, they asked you to post a comment about where you thought they should expand. So it's a very, very good way to learn about your market. And you can send up, you actually right away get access to snail mail and email addresses, so you can follow up with people to ask them other things. A good example is the Misfit Shine, which was a campaign by former Apple designers for a fitness tracking device that they wanted to have be very sleek so that you could hardly even tell that somebody was wearing it. But when they had their campaign, which was raising hundreds of thousands of dollars, they started getting comments that people wanted to have a way to showcase this item. So they were surprised because they had thought people would want to hide the tracker, but actually they put out a survey to find how people wanted to display it and got overwhelming response that people wanted a bracelet and necklace. So they actually added to their campaign those two perks, and they were huge successes. So they now have gone into the production design of necklaces and perks, which turns out to be a super high margin part of their business that they hadn't even expected that they would go into.
I understand how people from the community can raise funds easier with the people that they know, but how do campaigns typically go from a local level to a more global scale?
So it's all about thinking about the affiliations that that you might have as a campaign owner. So it's true, you need to get your earliest momentum from your closest community. It doesn't necessarily need to be physically close, but it often is. And then from there, it's thinking through who's going to care about your campaign because they care about the purpose, or they have pride in what you're doing, or they want the item that you're offering. So for example, I don't know, Kevin, why did your donor give $5,000?
Very useful to leverage Thunder Tabs to get your social network participate in your campaign. And after Thunder Tabs was successfully, was deployed, the Google Paxer will earn, and one of my big donors found out about our campaign via the newsletter and via the front page, featuring our campaign.
And why do you think your campaign spoke to her?
Well, I think the videos was really important.
Yeah, and their campaign had a social sector aspect, so they were giving a portion of proceeds to support orphanages in Vietnam. So perhaps this lady had been to Vietnam, perhaps she cared about supporting education in orphanages. We don't actually know, but for some reason the campaign spoke to her. So it's really good to start to figure out what those reasons people care are. So for example, if you were running a healthcare campaign and you find that a lot of your donors are doctors, that's a great sign for you to realize the doctor community is really rallying behind this. How do I reach doctors in other places? So it's really keeping a close eye on who is supporting your campaign and then finding additional networks for that in additional parts of the world. Because every network is somehow connected to another one, right? So it's building on each other.
Two questions, and I'll give you the mic real quick. But the first question, let me go ahead and ask Susan. First question is, do you guys screen these campaigns to see if they're legitimate or frivolous? Is there any screening that goes on? And secondly, the second question is, in the future, are you considering moving more toward crowd investing? So rather than perks, there's actually a transfer of ownership when someone, quote, invests in one of these ideas.
Great. So Indiegogo does not screen. You could have launched a campaign in the amount of time that I've been talking. It probably wouldn't have been very good because the best campaigns do take thought and planning, but you definitely could have. And we do instead have what we call our trust and safety team. So we don't screen before, and we trust the social networks of the world to help escalate the campaigns that are strong and move them up on our campaign and platform, and the ones that are not getting social momentum are not going to move up. So we have a lot of faith in our the social media. We also have algorithms to pick up fraud. So for campaigns that are fraudulent, maybe it's created by somebody who isn't actually going to do what they say they're going to do. We have found a lot of algorithms for figuring that out. So it's a little bit our secret sauce, so I'm probably not going to be able to tell you a lot of those algorithms, but we've learned a ton over time and have a very, actually top of the industry trust and safety team. As for the investing side, We think it's really cool. Actually, Indiegogo has been involved in the Jobs Act, which is the federal level legislation moving forward equity crowdfunding since the very earliest of days. The person who found and created the legislation that he proposed on the floor of Congress actually used Indiegogo to raise funds to cover the cost of hiring a lawyer to write that proposed legislation. So we've been there since day one, which is great, and we continue to be very engaged with the SEC. Our founders talk with them frequently, but we're not going to move into that space wholeheartedly until we know that it's actually an equal access way to do it. So to date, there have been some pieces of that movement that have enabled different pieces of it to go forward, but today you still cannot 100% across the country contribute and get equity to a campaign as an unaccredited investor, and we're waiting for things to pass and be more in line with our values on that front before we go forward. That said, we think it's a great industry. We're very excited about it, and we also think that crowdfunding as it exists today isn't going anywhere. We think that if anything, it's the tip of the iceberg, and it's getting much bigger and bigger almost literally every moment, because there are so many different applications for it. And if you think, you've probably had just sitting here a lot of ideas yourself of how it could apply in your life, and as you go through the next few weeks, you'll probably have even more. And those are just the tip of the iceberg. Our founder says he thinks that much like you don't really hear the word social network as much anymore because it's just part of our day. You don't really reference it as such because it's so normal. In 10 years, you won't even really reference crowdfunding because it'll just be a normal part of your day. It's of course you're doing crowdfunding. Of course this is the way a new product's coming to life. It's just the normal way. And even if it's just stays on the perk side, we see so much momentum there that adding profit or equity as one of the reasons you contribute is just one more reason of many that exist already.
My name is Priya. I'm curious, if I start a campaign, what are the resources I have to promote my campaign and market it other than videos and blog posts? Do you guys provide resources that I could use, or what do you suggest? What do you usually see that people do?
I think Thunderclap is a great idea, actually. That's a nice one. So Thunderclap is a way for you to get your social network to sign on to endorsing your campaign, and if you get enough people for you to tilt, then they'll send out a mass announcement about it to all of those people at the same time. Pretty cool, can be very helpful. But at Indiegogo itself, you are certainly able to use share tools, so we integrate with Facebook, Twitter, Google+, a couple others, and each person has their own unique URL. So the cool thing about that is that if each of you came to look at one of these campaigns on your computer, you would each have a different URL. And when you share that, we know who of you is referring most people to the campaign. So I would say the most valuable thing to do is to empower people you know in your network to share the campaign, figure out who's doing that most effectively, and then talk with them and help them do that even more. So that's a very, very powerful tool. It's pretty unprecedented. We also integrate with Google Analytics. We're the only platform that does that, and you get great information on are you getting the most traction via Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn, and who is referring the most. So those are also very good ways. But of course, just by getting your community and upping your go-go factor, then that's when those things like us sharing you in our social media and in our newsletter and our homepage start to kick in, and we'll also bring our crowd to you. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Bianca. I have a question. If Indiegogo were to run as a nonprofit and not as a double bottom line, how do you think that would affect your rate of growth in terms of impact? Like why be bottom line and not be nonprofit?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really fascinating. I don't know. We haven't pursued that right now. I think right now, having just received the $40 million investment, that's not something that I suspect would have happened for a nonprofit, and that's going to really help us to amplify our impact. I know that some venture capitalists will say that the biggest company with the biggest impact they've seen in the world has been Google, which is a for-profit, because it's enabled the access to knowledge in ways that most nonprofits could only dream of. But I also strongly believe in the power of nonprofits. The foundation I worked at supported social entrepreneurs like Kiva and Vision Spring and others. So I think there's a role, and it just depends which one you want to play. But I wouldn't keep it out of the question. I think it's a very interesting one. Yeah.
Hey Bree, my name's LaShawn Moo, and I have two questions. The first one is, what separates Indiegogo from Kickstarter? And then the second one is, what would you say is the biggest mistake most people that start crowdfunding do, and how could we, what are your advice on how we can prevent that from happening?
So, thank you. Since Indiegogo was founded, there have been literally thousands of platforms that have launched in the crowdfunding space, and they're each focused on a very specific topic. So you mentioned Kickstarter. They're focused on creative initiatives in a handful of countries. There's Rally, focused on nonprofits, GoFundMe, like all these other ones focused on different topic areas and geographies. Indiegogo remains the only one that is completely open. What they're all doing is the curated model, where they're selecting campaigns that are in a specific topic area and then promoting those. At Indiegogo, we're more like the Google of crowdfunding, where we're open to the world, and that's actually a really hard challenge. So what we're doing is having to figure out what the GoGo Factor algorithm is, constantly iterate on it, and then use that to inform the campaigns that we promote. So it's actually a totally different situation. Indiegogo brings the crowd to your work and empowers the crowd. I'd also highlight that we have ridiculously awesome customer support and knowledge and thought resources. There are a lot of other minor differences as well if you want to talk later. The second question, major mistakes. Probably the two key mistakes I see the most are launching a campaign that's all about your product or your idea without focusing on you. So not even saying, I'm doing this because I want to make a difference, but saying, why do you want to make a difference? There are a lot of people out there who aren't making a difference. There are a lot of people who aren't starting something new. So put your person and self into the video. The second thing is not staying engaged. So a lot of people think you make it and they will come, or that crowdfunding is like winning the lottery, but neither of these are true. Crowdfunding is a heck of a lot of work, and you have to stay, right? And you have to stay engaged. So it's really about learning from your campaign. I, having worked in venture before, see the greatest crowdfunders much like the greatest entrepreneurs, in that they're the ones who see their vision, but they're flexible on how they get to it, and they're willing to learn along the way.
This will be our last question.
Hi, I'm Claudia. So I'm curious to know what happens after the funding comes and like they reach either they reach the amount that they want or they don't. And like if they don't reach the amount, can they come back and restart the campaign again?
Sure. So as the most open platform, anybody can start a campaign anytime. So you can launch a campaign in the middle of your current campaign, which is not advisable because it's better to direct all of your momentum to one campaign, but you could do it. And you can launch a campaign right after you end a campaign. But what we most often see is people at the end of a campaign will learn from that experience, whether they've hit their goal or not. For example, that hardware phone campaign that raised $12 million, that wanted to raise $32 million, we returned all that money to the contributors. They learned a ton. They had had a lot of marketing. A lot more people know about Ubuntu now than they did before. I would not be surprised if we see them run another campaign in the future, and when they come out with a new version of the phone product. So most often what we see is people taking the time to learn, iterate, think on what they're doing, and then launch another campaign. But it's quite frequent for people to launch multiple campaigns, especially once you've delivered on your perks and performed what you said you were going to do. And then your early audience can actually become your closest community for your second campaign, which enables you then to have a higher initial momentum that allows you to have a grander campaign overall. Yeah.
First of all, Bree, I want to thank you for coming to Georgia Tech today. Thank you very much. Let's give a